Welcome to the Parenting Successful Teens, the podcast that cuts through the overwhelm and stress of this phase and offers parents simple, practical, cognitive, science-based strategies for keeping their teens on track. Join master coach and real-life mom, Allie Irwin, to talk about real teens, real problems, and the skills it takes to raise successful adults.
Hey there! It is such a gorgeous fall day here. And I hope it's the same in your part of the country, wherever you're listening from. Fall is hands down my favorite season, so I'm all jacked up on cider and Honeycrisp apples. And it's such a contrast to all the beauty of fall, the turmoil that my clients have been feeling this week. This week, I have done a number of calls that were all centered around judgment. Judging others, being judged, judging ourselves, feeling like we should be doing a better job than we are. Clients feeling guilty about yelling at their kids and their spouses, feeling bad about not going to the gym and eating too much Halloween candy. Feeling like our leaders, our bosses, our family members should be better than they are. And there are a couple of different ways we could go with this podcast because judgment is such a big topic. Like I said, there's the judgment we have for ourselves that we should be doing a better job or be better than we are. The judgment we have about other people and how they're conducting their lives. And then the judgment that others have about us. And honestly, I have clients who are judgmental about how judgmental people are. Maybe you've said yourself like, oh, people are so judgmental and you're not recognizing that you're judging people for judging people. So you can see how that becomes an infinity loop that just goes on and is self-reinforcing. A really perfect example of that is I have a client who was talking about a woman at her son's school who she felt was judging her. And as she was telling me the story of this, she said, "What right does she have to criticize me when she doesn't even own a bra that fits?" Oh, such a classic example of how when we feel judged, we lash out and judge that person right back. So let's start with our judgment of others. Most of the time, when we're judging others, we're just doing it with our thoughts. We aren't actually saying to the other person what we're thinking. We're just thinking to ourselves like, gosh, you're such a helicopter mom, or you should have known that was a dumb idea. You should have known that that wasn't going to work. Such a bad idea. Or even that example from my client, what right does she have to judge me when she doesn't even own a bra that fits? We amuse ourselves with our judgments and our observations. You might be thinking, what harm does it do? Because it all happens inside our heads. They're not even hearing our thoughts. So we think that there's no harm. You know, it's not like we have a cartoon thought bubble over our head they can read. And on top of thinking it doesn't do any harm, a lot of us feel very justified in our judgments. My clients tell me stories and they give me evidence of why this person deserves it. They say things like, no, that coach is an ass. Like, there is no way he should be coaching young kids. Or he's blind. Or no. You don't understand. She's really bad. They'll be telling me about a family member and they'll be like, no, you do not understand. This person is crazy. Or we'll say things like, all I'm asking her to do is her job. It's her job to do this and she can't even do that. We collect all this evidence of why our judgment of them is justified, as if being justified helps us in some way. As if it's okay to judge other people as long as you can create and document a case against them. So you may be asking, why does it matter if these thoughts are just in our head or if the person really deserves it? Like, why is it bad for us? Why would we be motivated to change when it's clearly their fault? Let me tell you why. Because when you are judging people in that way, you are practicing judging. You are developing and honing the skill of getting good at judging. Even if your judgments are funny, even if your judgments are just to yourself, even if your judgments are justified in your mind, you're literally practicing the skill of getting good at judging people. You're developing that neural thought pattern superhighway of judgment in your brain. You're getting faster and more efficient at judging. And so over time, you become more judgmental. And here's the thing, here's the big kicker. Being good at judging means that we are modeling for our kids being good at judging. We are teaching them to be judgmental. That's kind of mind-blowing, right? Have you ever thought about that? That literally by sharing what you consider to be funny observations about other people, by reposting on Facebook the funny memes that are judgmental, we are teaching others to be judgmental. And as a culture, we have whole industries that rest on enjoying judging. All of those snarky memes that circulate on social media are a reflection of us enjoying judging. Reality TV is a reflection of us enjoying judging. And when we make our judgments funny, we actually also are tying in the pleasure chemical of dopamine in our brain. And so every time we make a judgmental comment and it's funny, we feel a little dopamine squirt in our head. We get a little pleasure chemical. And then when we share that with another person and they laugh too, we're rewarded with more dopamine. It's like our brains get addicted to those little dopamine squirts that we get when we make sly, snarky social commentary. So if you can imagine that you were feeling bad about getting your kids to school late, so you're already kind of feeling terrible, and then someone says something that makes you feel even worse, and then you judge them in your mind with a funny comment about their bra, you get a little squirt of pleasure. And so you go from feeling terrible to feeling better. So it's actually pretty logical that we do this. We do this because it's a way that we can quickly make ourselves feel better. It's a way that we can transfer our bad feelings to someone else, like a bad feeling version of hot potato. And because this all happens in our minds, we think it's not doing any harm. So why would we stop this? Why is this not a good idea? Why? I've probably just convinced you to judge more. But here's the thing. We have to change this because while our brains love judging other people, our brains hate being judged. And if you have the habit of thinking judgmental thoughts and not saying them, you're going to assume that other people have the same habit. The more that you have the habit of judging others, the more you assume others have the habit of judging you. So even if you don't say anything out loud and you keep that judgment in your brain, you will assume that other people are doing the same thing. They're thinking those thoughts. Like you make a mistake, you think they're noticing and thinking judgmental thoughts to themselves in their brain. And the idea that someone would be having judgmental thoughts about you keeps you from doing the things that you want to do. And that shit's got to stop because we're holding ourselves back and we're teaching our kids to hold themselves back, all in an effort to avoid judgment. Just even think today about all the things you've already done to avoid judgment. I went for a run today in my neighborhood. Like I said, I'm obsessed with fall. And so I've been out running as a way to take a look at the beautiful trees. And my workout clothes are not a matching ensemble. They're more what's clean and less athlete ad. And there are several people in my neighborhood who always look amazing, even when they're working out, even when they're walking their dogs, even when they're doing like yard work. And as I got dressed in the morning, I noticed myself wasting time thinking about my neighbors seeing me in my free t-shirt and faded black leggings. And it doesn't stop me from going, but I do think about it. And if my neighbor and I go to the gym together, I definitely waste time and energy trying to put together a decent outfit so she won't judge me. I prejudge myself in an effort to prevent her judgment. That's a waste of time. Another one of my friends runs early in the morning because she's self-conscious about how slow she runs. So let me repeat that. She gets up extra early so that she can run before the other runners, which she calls the real runners, are out because she's so afraid of their judgment. Again, she prejudges herself so that she can avoid their judgment. And maybe those examples don't resonate with you. Maybe you're not a runner. Maybe you're judging us thinking we're crazy for running. Maybe you're more like a client I have who recently gave up drinking because it was affecting her sleep quality. She now finds herself worrying when she goes out with other people and tells them that she doesn't want to drink, that they will think she's given up drinking because she's an alcoholic, because she's got some sort of problem with alcohol. Or she worries that her friends will judge her as a no fun, like goody two-shoes when she goes out with them and doesn't drink. So this is a grown-ass woman who is worried about the very same kind of peer pressure that she's literally teaching her kids to avoid. Take that in for a second. She's having a drink so that her friends won't judge her for not drinking. And then she's trying to turn around and teach her kids to avoid peer pressure. And as parents, you have to know that even if her daughter isn't there at that dinner where she's making the choice, if her patterns of thinking are to avoid judgment, she's definitely teaching her daughter to avoid judgment in her own life. Okay, there's just no way there are too many interactions in a day to think one thing and then teach our kids a different thing. And when she talks about her fear of judgment, she judges her friends for judging her and making her drink. In her mind, she has no choice but to drink around her friends to avoid judgment. So the cost of all of this is that we make extra work ourselves and we stop ourselves from doing things that we want to do, or we end up doing things that we don't do, all in an effort to avoid judgment. And here's the thing. It doesn't work anyway. We still get judged. We still judge ourselves, and we still experience the feeling of judgment from others. So what do we do about this? How do we break the habit of judgment in ourselves so that we can free ourselves and teach our kids to be free as well? We start by understanding where judgment comes from. When we are judging, either judging ourselves or someone else, we think it's because someone has done or said the wrong thing. So when we're judging ourselves, we think it's because we've done something wrong. And when we're judging someone else, we think it's because they've done something wrong. We think that the judging comes from the action they took or didn't take. We think that the action happens and then we judge. So we believe that if they stopped doing the wrong thing, we'd stop judging them. If that slow driver would just get out of the passing lane, we'd stop calling them a moron. But that's not actually true. That's not actually how it works. There's a step in between the action and the judgment. The slow driver's speed is never the cause. In between me noticing the slow driver and my yelling, "Move over, moron," is a thought. I think a thought about his driving speed. And that thought is the cause of our judgment. Our judgment is always caused by our thinking, not by the action. So it's my thoughts about what a proper driving speed is that's causing my frustration. Because if you look at it from the other driver's perspective, they think I'm driving too fast. And the police car might think we're both driving too fast. The speed any of us are driving isn't causing the judgments. Our thoughts about the proper driving speed are causing our judgments. And because our thoughts are the problem, they can also be the solution. I can choose on purpose to think different thoughts and then practice being patient instead. In this driving example, I can practice a thought like, the most important thing is to be safe. Or maybe they're a new driver, and so they're driving more carefully. Or I could think a thought like, you know what, my yelling isn't going to change his behavior, so I might as well relax. So you might be saying, am I saying that you should just accept bad behavior? No. What I'm saying is that your judgment of other people very rarely has the effect of changing their behavior. And when you believe that they have to change so that you can stop judging them and feel better, you are causing your own frustration. You're handing all of your happiness over to someone you have no control over. You might also be thinking that this is all well and good with the slow drivers of the world, but that judging is a part of parenting, that it's our jobs to help our kids become more responsible, kinder, to do their homework and show up for practice on time. And that's true. But judging is different than holding a standard in one crucial way. Judgment has an element of downward social comparison. It's when we compare ourselves to others and look for ways that they're doing it wrong or at least a little bit worse than we are, and then take a little bit of pleasure in that. Like I said, that's basically the whole reason that we love reality TV, is because we look at people on reality TV and we feel good about our own lives. So if you are holding a standard, you will feel different than if you're judging. The standard in our house, for example, is that everyone does chores. If, say, my daughter's chore is to unload the dishwasher and she doesn't do it, I don't feel judgmental about that. I don't make it mean that she's lazy or uncooperative. I'm just thinking this is something that needs to be done before she goes out. It's just a fact. It's neutral. There's no drama. It just has to happen. And I can remind her about it without any drama. Can you see how that feels different than judging her about not doing a chore? Even if she resists or forgets, there's no judgment, because you know what? Sometimes I resist and forget chores. I hate grocery shopping, but if it needs to be done, I do it while I'm hating it. I don't judge myself for hating it. I just hate it and do it at the same time. And that frees me up to allow my kids to hate doing things and still ask them to do it, to still hold that standard. Can you see how much better that will feel? You don't have to get upset or make it mean anything about their future that they don't want to unload the dishwasher. You can just hold that standard with no judgment. And by doing so, we can teach our teens to hold their own standards for both themselves and for other people with no judgment. When we break our own judgment habit, then we can model acceptance, self-acceptance, acceptance of other people for our teens. Instead of teaching our teens the habit of judgment, we teach them the habit of acceptance. Accepting others just like they already are. Because what's the alternative? People are not going to change for our benefit. And when we expect them to and judge them when they don't, We're just signing up for our own frustration. And so we can teach our kids the habit of self-acceptance, just like we teach them any other habit, just like we taught them to brush their teeth when they were little. Day by day, we model accepting others exactly like they already are and catching ourselves when we don't. Don't worry if this piece is still a little murky. We're going to do more episodes down the road on acceptance and standards and boundaries. But for right now, I'm talking about accepting that people are going to be who they are. Slow drivers are going to drive slow, and a tailgater's judgment is not going to change that. Kids who hate emptying the dishwasher are going to hate emptying the dishwasher, and our judgment is not going to change that. We can teach our kids that accepting people for who they are, warts, quirks, and all, and teach our kids to do the same thing, which is so needed because most people I talk to, and definitely most teenagers I talk to, are already so self-critical that they do not need help at getting better at judging. And even when it is important to push them, having cleaned up your habit of judging will change the way that you talk to them. You'll have taught them to have self-compassion. You'll have modeled for them self-acceptance instead of criticism. And that will free them up to try new things and make mistakes and learn and figure things out. All of the skills they need to be learning as teenagers. And you'll feel better in the process. Your home will become more of a haven, a place where people can be themselves and be loved. All right, friends, that's what I've got for you this week. And if you love this, and I hope you did, share it with a friend. I found all of my favorite podcasts because someone said, hey, you've got to check this out. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to Parenting Successful Teens. If you enjoyed today's show, please head over to allieirwin.com/talk, where you'll find a free guide that teaches you 5 different ways to get your teenagers to tell you about their day. Grab the guide and start having better conversations today.